make you feel super good.
Damien Leone, he's the guy that writes and directs the Terrifier movies. He did, Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2, Terrifier 3. The short films that came before that, I've only seen the 3 Terrifiers. I actually have a review, really kind of live, unedited, off-the-cuff review of Terrifier 3 on the channel. I just did it like 20 minutes after I got home from the theater. So, real quick recap of that. I like Terrifier 1. I'm a slasher fan. I'm very simple like that. I appreciate a serial killer chasing girls through a building as the plot to an entire film. I hated Terrifier 2. I still do. I'll probably never come around to it. I really like Terrifier 3. I cannot explain that. I just, Terrifier 3 gave me like a whole new respect for Damien Leone as a writer. So, and now after this episode, I now have a whole new respect for him personally. To me, he sounds like a totally normal, like well-rounded character. I think he seems to have his shit together. So here, I pulled up this, or I will pull up this tweet. Let me throw myself on the screen down here. This seems to be what started it. What started this whole episode. Damien Leone. He posts, I don't know if this is on Facebook or Twitter, the post, but this, he posted it to his Twitter. Whatever, that's not important. Let's see. I want to make a very important statement regarding the Terrifier franchise and this ugly political climate we're living in. As most of you know, some of my cast and crew members have a very passionate political presence on social media with extreme and sometimes harsh opinions, which is their right. Put a little pin in that last sentence because I think that's probably what's upsetting people. I think that's probably the thing that stands out to people. Again, to me, it does not stand out or upset me at all, which we'll get to, but I'm all for freedom of speech and expression. Awesome. Guy's a writer, guy's a director. That's what you want. That's what you want writers and directors to say. Like, this guy just broke a box office record. This guy now is the writer and director of the highest grossing unrated film of all time. That is literally something that you want to hear from him. Like, you could have cut this post off there and I would have been like, awesome. I would have applauded this man loudly. That being said, Terrifier is not in any way, shape, or form a political franchise. Again, that's super obvious. Put a pin in that too, because that's kind of where the argument has gone overall. I did not get into filmmaking to become a politician or promote any political agendas or ideologies, especially through a killer clown movie. I fell in love with horror movies as a form of pure entertainment, and those are the films I like to make. Since Terrifier 1, our cast and crew has and still consists of both Republicans and Democrats, and anyone is welcome to be a part of it regardless of their political affiliations, as long as they are a decent human being. That goes for our fan base as well. If this doesn't sit well with any fans or cast or crew members, that is your right, and I respect it. You don't have to buy a ticket. You don't have to work on these films. Thank you, and I recommend you don't let toxic rhetoric on either side of the political spectrum deter you from being a Terrifier fan. Awesome. Like, I see nothing wrong with any of that. To summarize all that, it's basically, hey guys, let's all just be cool. Let's all just be decent people. And let's not be dicks. So people are mad at him. Well, people think what spurred this on. People think what spurred this on. I think either a day before that post or like a couple days before that post, David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier franchise, as of Terrifier 1 and 2, was he in one of the ones before that? I don't know. He's the guy that is recognized as Art the Clown. So a couple days before that, oh god, this is not showing up on the screen very well. I guess that's a little better. Let's see. If you're going to, David Howard Thornton says, if you're going to come onto my page claiming you're a fan and then insult the LGBTQ community, you can fuck all the way off. I don't know why this guy's censoring himself. I don't know why he can't just say the word fuck. I think someone said this was on Threads, actually, which I have to point out is hilarious because, David Howard Thornton he prefers one billionaire over another billionaire. Right, there's totally a difference between the two, right? David Howard Thornton, he prefers being on a platform that a different billionaire owns than like the other billionaire. And also, people that say fuck all the way off, that's the lamest shit you could ever say in the world. I'm going full scorched earth on this fucking post. Not because of anything to do with the LGBTQ shit. I could literally give a fuck about that. Anyone who says fuck all the way off, as if there's options, like you're gonna fuck a little bit of the way off or fuck it, it's just stupid. It's one of those things that like he's trying to make a serious statement, yet he's censoring the word fuck and saying you can fuck all the way off, as if he's like a 15-year-old girl. All of my films have been made by talented cast and crew members of the LGBTQ community. They are just as worthy of love and respect as anyone else. They exist and they matter. If you're not cool with that, then there's the door. I don't cater to those who would mistreat my colleagues in such a crude manner. My fandom is no place for such hateful bigotry. I wish he had posted what caused him to post that. Because, I don't believe these people sometimes. Because these people have cried wolf so many times. And when I say these people, I mean, to be technical, I am referring to, it's typically left-wingers. I just call them nerds. I'm sure you'll see in the title of the video. I just call them nerds. I just think they're fucking nerds. I don't think they're not real Democrats. They're not real left-wingers. They're just fucking nerds who are getting to, play the big guy on the internet for once. And they're taking full advantage. Yeah, because they've cried wolf so many times. Like, for all I know, somebody commented on a post of his and said, like, oh, that's gay. Like, maybe it was like a dude in his 30s. Like, I still talk that way sometimes. I still revert back to my prime, to my younger days, and I'll be, talking about something I don't like. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking gay. Yeah, it fucking happens. For all you know, someone made a comment like that, and he's going off about don't watch my movies. You're not allowed in my fandom. That's my biggest complaint about this post. I can't stand, and that's a thing you see a lot nowadays. Artists who become famous, and they think they make the rules as to who can watch or listen to or intake their art. You don't get to decide that. If you're going to be an artist, that's tough shit. Fucking like the reincarnation of Hitler can watch your movies if he wants to. That's not your choice. Even Kurt Cobain, and everyone knows that I fucking love Kurt Cobain. Even Kurt Cobain did that shit. But I will say, in Kurt's defense, Kurt Cobain, I think he said something along the lines of, if you're a sexist and a homophobe, like, don't buy my music or something. In Kurt's defense, back in the early 90s, those words carried a lot more weight. Nowadays, the words sexist and homophobe are thrown around every 0.4 seconds on this planet. Well, just in this country alone. And it's for things that, are not sexist or homophobic. So when Kurt Cobain says that, I believe him. I believe that he's really talking about sexists and homophobes. When people today say that stuff, they're clearly just talking about people that, don't agree with them 110% on, like anything. It could be like someone voted for a politician because he liked their tax plan better. And this guy's, saying, well, you're a homophobe. Don't watch my music or don't listen to my music. See, I've always hated that. Like, sorry, you don't get to choose who watches your movie. That's literally not up to you. Talk about the narcissism, right? Talk about the narcissism. I want to be a world famous actor. I want to be a world renowned actor. I want to be in movies that break box office records. but I also want the option to decide who watches and doesn't watch my movies. Sorry, David Howard Thornton. That's not your call. That's not your choice. You don't get to pick that at all. No one put you in charge of who gets to watch movies. So some of the tweets that I've seen, people are upset because Damien Leone's tweet came out like a day or two after that tweet, or that thread. Sorry. Remember, we have preferences on billionaires nowadays. So people say that when Damien Leone said that some of the people in his cast and crew members have passionate and extreme and sometimes harsh opinions. So people think that when Damien Leone says extreme and or harsh opinion, he's talking about that specific post by David Howard Thornton. But look, here's the thing. It could be any of David Howard Thornton's posts, because David Howard Thornton seems to have a habit of posting things about politics. That's usually nerds these days. That's usually their favorite thing to do. They love talking about politics on the internet. So, it probably wasn't that post. It was probably just the accumulation of all the posts that this fucking guy has made throughout his entire time as a celebrity, basically. You could consider any of them, Damien Leone did not specify which post he was talking about. He didn't specify which thread, he was talking about. He didn't even, honestly, he really didn't even specify it was David Howard Thornton. I think that's just the obvious conclusion that people came to. But, look, so someone pulled this up. Someone pulled this one up from the past, and they're like, dude, he could have been talking about this one. Once again, full disclosure, I don't simp for any politician. I don't fucking like any of them. I think they're all fucking out for themselves. So no, I'm not going to defend any politician. But if we're talking about extreme posts, I would call this an extreme post. This is an extreme thing to say. An orange rapist out on bail for inciting a violent insurrection is now openly making threats of violence if he isn't reelected at his Klan/Nazi rallies. So he's calling a majority of the American population Klansmen and Nazis, because the orange rapist just won the popular vote, whether you like it or not. I don't like Donald Trump. Again, I don't like Donald Trump. I didn't like Kamala Harris. I didn't like Joe Biden. I don't fucking like any of them. You always have to give full disclosure on these things nowadays. It's a shame. Then he says, this is akin to Osama bin Laden giving flight lessons after 9/11. So this guy believes the official 9/11 story. That is something to take note of. This guy, this guy believes everything that the government has told him about 9/11. Someone needs to step in and put a stop to this threat ASAP and lock him up. I don't remember any threats of violence that Donald Trump made. I don't know if this is when he was talking about the bloodbath comment, which was, that's been gone over so many times. I was just like, obviously he was just like talking hardcore and like using metaphors and shit. So people are saying that when Damien Leone talked about extreme positions, that it was about that last post, but for all we know, it was about this post. It is a pretty extreme thing to come out and call majority of the American population Klansmen and Nazis. That is certainly a very extreme thing. Also, imagine wanting to be a world famous actor and calling a majority of the country that you live in and the country that you target with your films, right? Your target audience. Imagine calling them Klansmen and Nazis. It's a very bizarre world that we're living in. So yeah, that's essentially the gist of it. What the argument has turned into is, there's kind of two things. One, the nerds, they like to say that it's not okay to not take a side. That's their way of, kind of pulling you into things. They try to pull people into, their whole deal, because they can't kindly and respectfully convince people to join them, so they have to do it very crassly and I don't know what the fucking word I'm looking for is. They essentially they're bullying. It's a bullying tactic. It's like an online bullying tactic, and so they're telling him that he's not allowed to sit on the fence. Some people like sitting on the fence. Some people don't mind. I do have to jokingly ponder. I wonder what the set of Terrifier is like when Chris Jericho and David Howard Thornton are on set at the same time. That has to be either a very tense time or like an awkward time. That's got to be hilarious. If I was ever gonna get to spend a day on the Terrifier set, I would want to be there when Chris Jericho and David Howard Thornton are there at the same time. To me, that sounds hysterical. That's the kind of peak entertainment I want. That's what Terrifier 4 should be. It should just be Chris Jericho and David Howard Thornton working together. We should just get behind the scenes footage of them having to coexist in rooms together. I would guarantee you that Chris Jericho is the more mature one in the situation and probably doesn't give too much of a fuck about what David Howard Thornton thinks politically. So yeah, so basically people are mad at Damien Leone. He's not taking the correct side. Keep in mind, there is a correct side. Like I said, you're not allowed to take no side. You're not allowed to just be nice and like everybody. You're not allowed to just respect everybody. You have to take one side, and he's not doing that. So people are mad about that. And then, the argument from there has kind of devolved into, is all art inherently political or not? The nerds, of course, say that it is, because the nerds' lives revolve around this. This is their entire personality now. So they have to insert their personality into everything that they like. It also kind of kills two birds with one stone, right? So virtue signaling is like the way of the world now. I talk about virtue signaling all the time. It's like my biggest pet peeve. Everyone loves to virtue signal. That's everyone's favorite thing to do nowadays. So people that love horror movies, when they can kill two birds with one stone, when they can continue loving horror movies and continue watching horror movies and continue talking about horror movies while also virtue signaling, it just makes their life a whole lot easier. So that's why these people will just kind of shove politics into everything. And yeah, there's been a lot of political commentary in horror movies, but the best political horror movies are the ones, from the old days. The best ones are the ones where the political commentary is kind of optional. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead, two of the greatest horror films of all time, chock full of political commentary. There's a lot of stuff in there you can really get into and think about and talk about if you want. But at the same time, you could also watch those movies and not think about shit. You could also totally just watch those movies and leave the thinking cap on your nightstand. It doesn't matter at all. You can totally watch those movies as just horror movies that are going to kind of freak you out a little bit before bed, and everything's all good. But yeah, of course, like I said, a lot of the people are saying no, that doesn't, a movie does not exist without politics in it. There's somebody posted like a bunch of tweets, like in one tweet, and it was just tweets from people that try to make this argument. Here's one person. I'm just gonna pull these fucking tweets up. I might as well just put them on the screen, just because it's funnier that way. So this person, Kale succumbing to the darkness. Kale loves rats succumbing to the darkness. That's a fucking name. Not political. And it's a series where a majority of women get chopped up and sexually mutilated. So some people will argue that because women get killed in horror movies a lot, it's political. I don't even understand how you make that correlation. My theory for why a lot of horror movies ever since the olden days have had women victims is because I think it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit more. I think back, at least in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, I think horror, the audience was certainly more, it was more males. I think more guys liked watching horror movies. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, or I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's always been girls that watch horror movies. I'm not saying that there's not, but I'm just saying, I think if you go back to, 70s, 80s, older times, you would get the cliche image of like the boyfriend dragging his girlfriend to the scary movie and the girlfriend covers her eyes. And, that's where the whole thing about taking a girl on a date to a horror movie comes from, because she grabs onto your arm, because she startles easily, because she's a girl. So I think that's why a lot of the horror movie victims have always traditionally been girls. I think it tugs. I know for me as a dude, it tugs at my heartstrings way more when you see a girl who's like fucking 5'2", like 100 pounds. You know, look at the classic scene in, again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when Leatherface picks up Pam and just carries her back into the house like it's fucking not a problem at all. That's it. That's like a devastating scene to watch that. So I think the answer is that simple. I think that's why girls get killed in horror movies constantly. It's more devastating, you know. It tugs at the heartstrings that much more. And dude, in the last Terrifier movie, we just watched a guy get a chainsaw ran up his ass. Like, what do you know, what do you want, an entire movie of only male victims? I'm sure there are horror movies out there that have, you know, made points out of having mostly male victims. So I don't think that's a good argument for why horror movies are political. Another tweet, I'm not even going to bother pulling this one up because it doesn't even actually make the point. It's somebody tweeting at Damien Leone. He says, how you, as a film director, don't see that all art is political is beyond me. There are thousands of people who would love to be in your position with a wildly successful franchise under your belt who would never say something so uninformed and harmful. Do better. This guy claims that it's harmful to say that not all horror films are political. If I was able to get a hold of this guy, I guarantee you he would never respond to me. I would like to ask him, please explain to me the political statement that Rob Zombie made when he made House of a Thousand Corpses. Please explain to me the politics of House of a Thousand Corpses. I would like to know. We could go on from there. Please explain to me the politics of the first Friday the 13th movie. The movie that basically started the slasher hype. I mean, I know Halloween is the one most people will say. I tend to think Friday the 13th was I think Halloween was the fuse, and I think Friday the 13th was the lighter. It was the spark. But regardless, yeah, I would like this guy to please explain to me how Friday the 13th is a political movie. I'm sure he would just go to most of the victims were girls. So, you know, again, I don't really understand how that would be a point. Another tweet from somebody says, we really got to bring media literacy back because horror is political, regardless of whether or not it has a political affiliation. Okay, so whether the movie has a political affiliation or not, it is political. Like, what is this is the guy talking about media literacy. This one we're pulling up on screen. This one you should see. I'm not making this one up. Who dies is political. Who inflicts the violence is political, and every choice in between. Jesus Christ. The fact that it's able to be made and viewed is political. Yeah, these people are like obsessed. These people are mentally unwell is really what it is. These people have no personality outside of they voted for Joe Biden or for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump for that matter. Again, I talk a lot of shit about Democrats because my whole life I've always considered myself a Democrat. And then one day it seems like I woke up and they were all acting like this. So I am particularly bitter towards them. But don't get me wrong, you certainly see the side on the other side too. You certainly see a lot of Trumpomaniacs, as Hulk Hogan should have called them instead of Trumpites. It's like the dumbest shit I ever heard. It's like, how the fuck are you missing Trumpomaniacs, dude? How are you getting on stage and talking about Trumpites? What the fuck are Trumpites? Trumpomaniacs was right there, and he fucked it up. Hulk Hogan is a shell of his former self. But anyways, yeah, these people are mentally unwell. They are mentally unwell. They all go to therapy. That's the funny thing. They need different therapists. Like, they need real therapists. They need Red Foreman from that 70s show as their therapist. You know, these guys need to pull their underwear out of their ass and go outside and find a fucking personality. Go outside and talk to pretty girls. Go outside and play some basketball. Like, dude, there's other stuff you can be doing. I guess right after And this is just kind of, we're going back to calling David Howard Thornton a fucking nerd. I guess after, I think like the day after Damien Leone posted that, David Howard Thornton, a 45-year-old man, posts, "I'm okay, just taking a mental break from the ensuing madness of the world right now. Thanks for the support." So you're taking a day off of Threads. You're a 45-year-old man and you're taking a mental break from Threads. You know, and of course, Lauren Lavera is also kind of lumped into this because I hold less against her because she's younger. I think she's like early 20s. She's probably like a legitimate victim of propaganda and, the internet, like online bullying. She, probably at some point, I would imagine everybody in this age group has at one point said something wrong on the internet and got kind of pushed back into place by all these mobs of people on the internet. So I'm sure somewhere before she was famous, like maybe she was 15 or something, she said some shit and it wasn't correct, and somebody, I don't know. So I tend to feel less bad or more bad. I feel more bad for the younger people. But David Howard Thornton is 45. There's no reason this man should be needing a mental break from his director saying something that is like totally normal. Like, why don't you fucking quit? This is the part where I start being a dick. Like, I don't want to be a dick, but why don't you fucking quit then? Why don't you take a mental break from the fucking franchise that made you a fucking star? Speaking of the franchise that made him a star, it gets a little juicier. There was, I don't know where this post came up at, but someone got this on screenshot. It's since been deleted by Damien Leone, but it looks like, what's that? God, what's that fucking? That looks like Discord. Isn't that Discord? It looks like Discord. I don't know. It says Damien Leone on X, but that doesn't look like. I think it literally says X on the bottom. I'm just stupid. I don't know. But either way, he's deleted this. He was responding to someone, and he said, "I'm all for political horror films. There's a difference between making a political film and purposely weaponizing your non-political film or the platform it's enabled you to have in order to push personal political agendas and alienate people you happily work with." And he deleted this, I think, kind of immediately after someone said, it seems pretty obvious he's talking about David Howard Thornton, which, if this is the case, Damien Leone's totally right. I would totally back him. Without Damien Leone, David Howard Thornton is a fucking cashier at Home Depot. There's nothing wrong with this post as far as I'm concerned. Without Damien Leone writing fucking Art the Clown and hiring David Howard Thornton is washing the dishes at the pizza joint that I just went to last Saturday. And no one gives a fuck about his views on the LGBTQ or the latest election or the orange rapist or the insurrection. So I'll take a little bit of credit back from Damien Leone just for deleting this post, because this is the real shit. This is the shit that David Howard Thornton needs to man up and fucking look at and realize is true. This guy wants to fucking act like a fucking ally on the internet when he doesn't even want to acknowledge that he would be a fucking useless ally if it wasn't for Damien Leone. The whole thing is just comical. I have some other tweets bookmarked that are just from other people talking about it. Someone posted Damien Leone's original, the first post of this episode that I read, and said about it, just retweeting to add to the chorus of those espousing, quote unquote, horror is political, like it's some kind of secret insider knowledge. It can be, but not always. Those digging for subtext behind every machete swing need an intellectual enema. Sometimes the curtains really are just blue. That's something that a lot of people also need to hear. This is like a big trend in horror movies nowadays, for sure. And I just talked about this like 5 minutes ago. It's people, they're combining their love of virtue signaling with their love of horror. They just put the two together. Like I said, I'm waiting for somebody to please explain to me the politics behind House of a Thousand Corpses. I've heard one time, I've got one, I think I don't know if the video's still up. I talked about it. If anyone remembers that YouTuber In Praise of Shadows, there's that fucking dork who wore the fucking jacket with the tassels in his last video and tried to talk shit about how we need to not let conservatives watch horror movies and conservatives are invading the space of horror fans. And Wendigoon, right? World famous YouTuber Wendigoon, who's never harmed a soul, is a bad person because he's a Christian, and he went on this wild racist rant about, the hills have eyes and about how people from the Appalachians are all fucking racist. And this guy is just like a terrible person, a terrible judgmental person, and a fucking nerd who needs mental help for sure. He had a review on his channel. I think he's taken it down because I tried to find it recently, actually, and I couldn't find it anymore. He did a review of Rob Zombie's Firefly trilogy, and that's my favorite fucking, like, don't try to talk to me about Rob Zombie's films unless you want the fucking smoke. That's usually what I'm getting at. And so he covers the trilogy, and it was a really good video. A lot of the stuff he talked about was really good, but I noticed he slipped in this comment when he was talking about House of a Thousand Corpses. He said that House of a Thousand Corpses is a queer-coded movie, which I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what queer-coded was. I looked it up. It pretty basically just means like it's got queer stuff involved. I'm still a little bit uncertain on the definition of the word queer, and I mean that like genuinely and sincerely. If like a young person in here could ever explain it to me, because I've still never found a solid answer based on context clues and like what I've seen. My best assumption is that it's kind of taken the place of the word gay. Usually when I see it, it's in the place of like where the word gay would have been if this was like 15 years ago. So I'm not entirely sure. That's my best guess, though. I think it is kind of just like the new word for gay. And again, I'm being completely, I would like to know. If I'm wrong, somebody please tell me. If I'm correct, somebody please tell me. I would like to know this for future reference. Maybe I'm just old. But when I was growing up, it certainly meant something different. It meant gay when I was growing up. But, it was like an insult. Kids weren't calling themselves queer. But anyways, House of a Thousand Corpses is not a queer-coded movie. There's not a single thing in House of a Thousand Corpses that you could look at and say, oh, it's a queer movie. It's Rob Zombie in 1999, right before anyone ever even like said the term queer-coded. Rob Zombie in 1999 was sitting at home writing a script called House of a Thousand Corpses and said, I'm going to make this a queer-coded film. It's just not true. That is 110% false. So it's a weird habit that these people have where they I'm getting into such murky waters right now with this whole topic, but I just don't fucking care anymore. This shit's so irritating. I'm so tired of like loving certain things and like the fan base just has to just fucking ruin it. I always get involved in like these forms of art where the fan base is just insufferable, and horror has certainly been one of them. It's I don't know why it has to be like this. It's this weird need to insert politics into everything, because like I said, these people are unwell. Like this is all they have. Like, this is all you have in your life is talking about things that are queer coded, or talking about how you voted for fucking Kamala Harris, and how this movie from like 2003 has these political ideas that weren't even like in existence back then. Like, what are you talking about? One of my biggest pet peeves is when people talk about the Frankenstein movie, the original Frankenstein, 1931, one of the greatest horror films of all time. People talk about how that's a gay movie. No, they call it a queer movie. Actually, I've seen a lot of videos that it's a queer movie. According to these young kids on YouTube, Frankenstein is a queer movie. The Frankenstein's monster is supposed to be a representation of what it was like to be queer back then. Even though I don't think people called themselves queer in 1931. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still looking for my solid definition of the word queer. James Whale, the guy who directed Frankenstein, was gay. He was like openly gay in the 1920s and 30s in Hollywood, which was fucking unheard of. But based on all accounts, if you do any surface level research, no one gave a fuck. It wasn't a big deal. On the fucking Wikipedia page, like we're talking the most surface level research you can do. On James Whale's Wikipedia page, there's a direct quote from his partner, his gay part. He lived with a dude. They were gay lovers. This dude literally said, no, James Whale's movies weren't gay. There's a direct quote where he says James wanted to be known as an artist, not a gay artist. So you have all these kids on YouTube, either just not doing any research that's real research, like I know Wikipedia is not real research, but you don't usually skip over Wikipedia. You should at least go to the Wikipedia. Or it's these kids just blatantly disrespecting the wishes of a dead man because they want to insert their politics into something from fucking 1931. Like, they're so obsessed with this shit that they have to go back to 1931 and insert their fucking ideas into this shit. Even though we literally have it on record from the man's fucking boyfriend that he did not want that. You see that a lot too. That's kind of a whole separate side tangent. People speaking on behalf of dead people. Remember that guy? There's that, it's like that transgender TikToker who goes around to restaurants and like clearly is a fucking dude. And when people at restaurants slip up and call him a dude, he's recording it and he posts it. And like, that's his whole thing. He's got the curly hair with the bad bangs. And he wears the lipstick and he carries the dog around and he accidentally said the N-word on, I think, like on TikTok Live. I'm pretty sure because he accidentally said the N-word on TikTok Live, nobody will be mad at me for calling him a dude. At least I think that's how it works. I think saying the N-word kind of eliminates everything, right? Like if you say the N-word, no one gives a fuck about what I say about you. You said the N-word, motherfucker. He put out some video. It was like a year ago. It was a little while ago, but he literally came out and said, like directly said, Kurt Cobain was probably transgender because he wore dresses on stage. And it's like, dude, that's when I don't care. Like, I'll call you a fucking man. I don't care anymore when you start talking on behalf of Kurt Cobain. My thing with Kurt Cobain is way unhealthy. I will admit this one. My thing with Kurt Cobain is fucking real. And nobody speaks ill of Kurt Cobain when I'm around, or it's bad news. Nobody speaks on behalf of Kurt Cobain when I'm around, or it's bad news. Kurt Cobain, who knows? Kurt Cobain wasn't, first of all, Kurt Cobain was just like a fucking straight dude from some redneck area in Washington who probably grew up shooting guns and fishing with his fucking redneck family. Yeah, he was certainly into fucking woman rock and rollers. He was into women that played guitar and shit. He was into badass chicks. That's cool. There's no indication at all whatsoever that Kurt Cobain was transgender, not a single one. And regardless of whether there was or not, the guy's been fucking dead since 1994, so it's not anyone's place to come out and say whether he was or not just because you want to make some political statement on TikTok. It's pathetic. It's honestly pathetic. And I feel the same way when people talk about Frankenstein's a queer movie. I mean, with Kurt Cobain, we did not have it on record of him saying, hey, I'm not transgender. Please don't say this about me. But with James Whale, we have it on fucking record that he does not want to be known as a gay artist. Yeah, all these fucking young YouTubers, all they can fucking talk about is how Frankenstein was fucking gay and queer. And I think it's disrespectful. I think it's fucking disrespectful. I don't care. I don't care if people want to comment on this shit and say that I'm being insensitive or I'm being fucking whatever. You're disrespecting a dead man. You're disrespecting a dead man's wishes because you want to fucking virtue signal and talk about your fucking politics on a fucking YouTube review of a movie from 1931. I could go on about this forever. People do this with King Kong. Of course, it's the classics. They get it. King Kong, one of the greatest films of all, not even just horror films of all time. It's totally a horror film too. Quote me on that. King Kong is a fucking horror movie. from 1933, one of the greatest films of all time. I just rewatched it last weekend on Blu-ray. I have a DVD copy. I'm totally just going wild right now. I have a DVD copy that's this really cool collector's edition. It's got all these booklets and like behind the scenes stuff and pictures. But I wanted to preserve that a little better, so I got a Blu-ray copy finally. Hilarious. Dude, I don't know why we insist on taking these old fucking movies and continuously upping the quality of them. King Kong is not meant to be watched on Blu-ray. I will continue watching it on Blu-ray because I don't want to wear out my collector's DVD. But we are not supposed to have 1080p or 4K King Kong. That's not how you're supposed to watch it. You're not supposed to watch the Universal Classics where they're literally using string to lift motherfuckers up. You're not supposed to watch that shit in 4K. You know, it's like when metal bands, like metalcore bands with very slick production and triggers on the kick drums and whatnot, it's like when they put their albums out on vinyl. It's like, what the fuck? Why? Why would you release a metalcore album on vinyl? It made sense for fucking Led Zeppelin, you know? It makes sense if you're trying to do a wannabe Led Zeppelin shit. You know, if you're fucking Greta Van Fleet, you know, the band that needs babysitters on their tour. It makes sense if you're them, like, and they're, you know, you're doing the old school rock and roll thing, but like, yeah, why, you know, I don't know. King Kong, buy the Blu-ray just because King Kong is awesome, but watch it once or twice just for the comical factor of, you know, how the shit looks when it's presented in that kind of quality. Back to the main rant. King Kong, yeah, people do it with King Kong too. They always have to talk about how King Kong is, you know, now it's racist, it's hard to watch. You know, it's like, dude, no, it's about a fucking giant gorilla. There's this one YouTuber. I won't out this kid because I really like this video that I'm talking about, but he does this video. And in the video, he talks about King Kong, and he literally says something to the effect of, it's hard to see King Kong and not think of a black man. And it's like, wait, what? What? Like you're not the racist one? Like, we're sitting here, I'm in my room watching you on my TV, and you're not the racist one saying shit like that? He goes on to talk about, you know, the way that they brought King Kong back to America on a ship in chains. You know, that's supposed to be reminiscent of the slaves. How the fuck else do you want them to get King Kong back to America? Do you want them to fly him first class? Did you want them to put King Kong on an airplane and fly him back to America? Did you want a scene of King Kong, like, smoking a cigarette? Like, flirting with the flight attendant? You know, she's bringing him, like, champagne and orange juice, and he's, like, smoking a cigarette, reading the newspaper. Is that what you wanted? He makes a comment about King Kong's big lips, and I'm like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is too much. This is ridiculous. If anybody should be, like, banned, nobody should be banned from watching horror movies, but the fucking nerds, like the younger generation, they need to be banned from, like, talking about horror movies on YouTube. And since I've gone so far off on a side tangent, David Howard Thornton needs to be banned from fucking talking on the internet, because the guy's just a fucking dweeb. So all the way back, let's revert all the way back to the main point. We're talking about how people try to say that all horror is political. That is the main point. That's what led to this whole side tangent. We have another tweet here that says, you know, I mostly bookmarked tweets defending Damien Leone. Somebody says, Damien Leone says, in quotes, Republicans and Democrats both work on my films and my works aren't explicitly political. And then he says, lefties in the comments reply to that and say, oh, so you like Nazis. You're a Nazi. You're an anti-art Nazi chud. Which is just kind of commenting on how people will just stretch and just reach to you know, read whatever they want into, you know, a director tweets, yeah, I'm fine with everybody. As long as you're a nice person, you're cool. And, you know, the reaching has been insane is basically what he's saying. I've always hated that whole point. The whole point that all horror films are inherently political. Like I said, I'm still waiting. Somebody, I hope one of these fucking people sees this video, and somebody please in the comments, if you believe that, please tell me the political statement that Rob Zombie was making with House of a Thousand Corpses. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. What was the statement that he was making? Who did Rob Zombie vote for in the early 2000s? You know, if you're so good at sniffing out the political statements in horror films, tell me who Rob Zombie voted for in the early 2000s. Oh, man, I do this all the time. I save way too many tweets. Then I have to run through all these. Oh, this one guy had a good one. Let me pull this one up. There's a word in it that I can't say, so I have to pull it up and just let you guys read it. Hopefully one of you slips up and reads it out loud. Somebody tweeted, horror is, always has been, and always will be political. And then he tweets 4 pictures. He tweets a picture of the main character from Night of the Living Dead, which is also an example that I hate because George A. Romero himself has said so many times, I was not making any kind of statement with that. He was simply just the best actor that came into audition, and he just so happened to be black. You could argue there's some, you know, for the time, yeah, maybe it was a kind of crazy. But if anything, to me, that's like an anti-political statement. That's like this guy saying, I'm so far removed from racism and any kind of political commentary that I don't give a fuck if a black man has never led a horror movie before. Like, I don't care. To me, that's like anti-politics. That's just pure humanism. This guy just sees people on a fucking human level. You know, George A. Romero is not trying to use somebody's skin color for a political statement. Then there's a picture of, this guy tweeted a picture of Black Christmas. I don't think Black Christmas is political. You know, people get into the abortion subplot. I think Bob Clark has talked about it. I think he just said he wanted to make her relatable. And, you know, abortion was kind of an issue in the late 70s or early 70s. It was 1974. Black Christmas was also one of my favorite horror films. So, I'm not quite as well versed on Black Christmas as I am on Rob Zombie films, but I'm still pretty sharp on my Black Christmas. And Bob Clark, I don't think was trying to make any kind of political statement. You know, like he said, he was just trying to make his characters relatable. And what's a more relatable topic than a girl in college has sex with her boyfriend, gets pregnant, you know, doesn't want to keep the baby. She wants to go on with her life. And I mean, that's still a thing that happens fucking every day today. I know everything has become politicized, or people like things to become politicized, but this guy also posted Jennifer's Body, you know, with Megan Fox. See, like, some of these things I think are just more social issues. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. I don't always think social issues have to be political, you know. Jennifer's Body, that's really just about a girl in high school that all the guys have a crush on, and then she becomes a fucking succubus. You know, I think it's late, like, recently it's become more of a... That's the thing. That's again, back to the main point. A lot of these movies come out and they're just movies, or there's some kind of social commentary. And then in recent years, they just become completely fucking political. And then the last thing he posts, of course, is Get Out by Jordan Peele. Get Out is not that good of a movie. Get Out is a political movie, and it was meant to be a political movie. That's an example of a movie that was made to be political, and I think was made by the director with the intention of, you know, which honestly, that kind of makes me not look down up. To me, you're taking advantage of, no, taking advantage isn't the right word. I don't know. I don't like, I'm fine with political horror movies, but sometimes it feels like they might be using that as a shield. You know, I'm going to write this movie. I know what the audience reception is going to be to it, because I know the side that I'm going to stand on when I write this movie. Regardless of all that, my only issue with Get Out is the writing. To me, there's a huge obvious plot hole. Why is the family who hates black people turning themselves into black people? Has no one talked about that? right? So Get Out is about this like ritzy, wealthy white family, and there's a hot girl in the family. They have a hot daughter, and they send her out to date black dudes. And then she lures the black dudes back to her family's house for, she invites them to family gatherings. And the family has all this weird like witchcraft shit. The mom like can hypnotize people, and then the dad is like a brain surgeon, so he like takes the brain of the black guy and puts it into the body of like one of their aging relatives. So then no, it's the other way around. They take like the brain out of one of their like aging relatives and put it into the body of this young healthy black man. So then the aging relative is now alive in the body of a young healthy black man. But they're racist. That's the whole point of the movie. They hate black people. So who hates black people and wants to become a black person? And nobody will say this because, dude, Get Out. I can't stand when people talk about Get Out. I've seen so many comment sections in like Facebook horror movie groups, and I'm not even over exaggerating. I've seen people bring up Get Out. One brave soul will comment and say, oh, it just wasn't my favorite movie. It didn't really do it for me. And I've seen dozens of people jump in this and start calling this poor kid fucking racist. There's one that I remember very specifically. Some kid commented and said, it just wasn't my favorite. I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. And some girl commented, oh yeah, it probably hit a little too close to home for you, huh? And the kid was like, what? I don't know. He said something along the lines of, I don't even know what you're getting at. And she went off on this whole fucking tirade about how this kid must have a problem with a black man telling his story, and that's his fucking internalized racism. And it's like, bro, he doesn't like a fucking movie. Like, what are you talking about? This kid is racist because he doesn't like a movie? It's really sad. It's really sad. Like, the whole point that we're at with all of this stuff. Oh yeah, here's the tweet with the word that I'm not allowed to say. Let me pull this up. Well, it's not that I'm not allowed to say. It's a word that I don't... I'm making this way too complicated. Let's see. This is a tweet. This guy says, the people that all art is political people. When the art has politics they don't agree with, in parentheses, the art actually has no politics at all. Oh, no! No, no, no! I love how long this goes on for, honestly. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's a perfect representation of these fucking nerds with no real personalities. I think that might have been all I saved. No, I did save one more. This was a little bit of a side tangent, but it is still kind of funny. It's funny because of the whole thread that came on underneath it. And it has to do with, no, sorry, there's two more tweets I have, but this one I do have to bring up. So, this guy brought the subject back to Terrifier 1. And he said, everyone acting like Terrifier being super queer is a new thing. This actress, I can't remember her name, Squid Enthusiast is her Twitter handle, Jenna Cannell. Jenna Cannell, is that how you pronounce it? I liked her a lot. I thought she was awesome in this movie. She's gorgeous in this movie too. Like, I really liked her in this movie. I liked the first Terrifier movie. Jenna Cannell literally threw the first brick at Terrifier's stone wall. And then horror is political, final gaze. So this is the star of Terrifier 1 when she starred in it. This is her now, obviously judging by this tweet. And I've seen this. She identifies as queer, perfectly fine. But because of that, Terrifier is super queer. That makes no sense. So I I scrolled down and I saw this. Coincidentally, Otis B. Driftwood, which is hilarious because Otis is my guy. Honest question, because I really don't get it. Why is Terrifier super queer? What of it? Honest question. The guy legitimately is asking, why is it a queer movie? Right? I would also like to know. Somebody just says clowns are all lesbians, and this person's obviously just trolling. He says Pennywise is a lesbian. Nice, he knows it's trolling. Somebody here says if a queer appears, then the whole thing is queer, evidently. But also straights appear. So does that mean it's actually a straight franchise? Does anyone understand any of this? Right? So that's what the requirement for a queer movie. Just one actor is queer, and then the entire movie becomes queer. I would bet you all the money in my bank account that a majority of the actors in Terrifier 1 were straight, so why is it not a super straight movie? Otis B. Driftwood said, I'd really like to understand the thought behind it. I tried to ask the director of It's a Wonderful Knife. When he said that everything about his movie is queer, he just blocked me. Somebody who's going against Otis B. Driftwood says he probably blocked you for a reason. Otis B. Driftwood says, probably no other way to get away from the question without looking stupid. This person then says, he doesn't owe you an explanation because we can all tell what type of person you are. We all know the intent behind you asking these questions. In quotes, apparently that's not a real question. You're the one who looks stupid. I did a quick search and there's articles that would answer your question. So that's another problem with these. Again, I'll just keep calling them nerds. They just want to say things and you're just supposed to accept them as fact. They don't owe you explanations. Okay, but the thing is, like, if you're genuinely passionate about this subject, if you identify as queer and you direct a queer movie, don't you want to tell the world about why, like, what makes it queer and what makes it great? Some people are genuinely asking, like I just asked however long ago. Somebody please give me a solid definition to the word queer. I still have not seen one solid definition, and I would genuinely like to know. But these people, they don't want to answer your question because there's no answer to the question. I'm sure there is an answer to what queer means. I'm sure that I just haven't gotten it yet. I don't go around asking it too often. Actually, I've never gone around asking it at all. I don't tweet people. I have my Twitter. I'm an observer, and I use it for the stream. That's it. But yeah, it sounds like that Otis B. Driftwood guy was like genuinely asking. So that one person is like, we know what kind of person you are for even asking these questions. Dude, if you were passionate about this subject, you would be jumping at the chance to educate this guy on why this movie is a super queer movie and what makes it, that's why I don't think a lot of these people actually like believe the things they say. They just jump on the right side because that's where their friends are. That's where they're not going to get bullied. That's what, it's the popular side. Honestly, it's the popular kids table. And nobody has an answer. Nobody has answers for it. Why can't you tell this guy what makes Terrifier a queer movie? Like, you're obviously very hyped about this. You're obviously very excited about this. You tweeted this. You got the hashtags. You even tagged the actress in it. Like, answer, like, please, like, it's an honest question, but you're not allowed to ask questions. They just want to say things, and you just have to just accept it. You just have to say, okay, yeah, sure, Terrifier is a queer movie. Dude, Terrifier is a fucking movie about a clown who chases two girls around a building and kills them. Terrifier is a movie where a clown hangs a blonde girl upside down naked and hacksaws her in half, starting at her fucking pussy. What are you talking about? What is the queer part of that? What is the queer part about hacksawing a girl in half, starting at her pussy? Somebody please explain this to me. What is queer about hacksawing through a girl's pussy? That's what I want to know. Somebody tell me. I'm not leaving here until I get some answers. I'll be here all night. It's raining tonight. I'm not going for a fucking run tonight. I'm gonna sit here all fucking night. Anybody that shows up in this fucking chat. Actually, it's not raining. I will not be here all night. I'll be here for anywhere from another like 30 minutes to an hour or so. So someone owes me an answer though. I'm gonna get my fucking answer tonight. That's for sure. I want to know what is queer about that. And dude, the thing is, like, if it's a good answer, like, I'm not trying to be a dick. I don't think this Otis B. Driftwood guy on Twitter was either. I think he, Dude, like, I'll take a good answer. You give me a good answer, I'll say, okay, yeah, for sure. I guess there is something queer about hacksaw on a girl's pussy. Yeah, I just, dude, I'm old. I'm old. When I was growing up, we called people queer, and it just meant like we didn't like that person, or we called our friends queer because we thought it was funny. That's part of this problem is that dude, I'm fucking old. I don't know all this stuff. But how am I supposed to get it in with the popular kids if I don't know all this stuff? Dude, I'm single. I'm trying to date. I want to date girls. And girls are really into this stuff apparently. And I would like to talk to these girls, but what am I supposed to do when nobody will tell me anything?
Sometimes I think I'm drunk and then I realize I am drunk. Sometimes I think I'm drunk and then I realize I am drunk.